Welcome to the War on Mediocrity, where our goal is to stand with you in battle against the tyranny of average, the siren song of complacency, and the scourge of the ordinary. Our mission is to help you unlock the next level in your life, whatever that looks like for you. Whether you're looking for tips on becoming a better parent, leveling up your career, starting a business, waking up earlier, making the best use of your time, or improving your relationships, we aim to connect you with the experts, the teachers, and the ideas that can help you fight the war on mediocrity. My name is Joe Saunders. I am the host of the show, and I am most certainly not your guru. I am but a fellow seeker, looking for companionship on this road less traveled. If this sounds like something you're interested in, we're so happy you've joined us. My guest on this first ever episode of the War on Mediocrity podcast is none other than legendary author, martial artist, and former bouncer, Geoff Thompson. Geoff is a BAFTA-winning playwright, screenwriter, and the author of over 50 books. In this interview, we discuss Geoff's recently released book, The Divine CEO. Now, warning, this is not a light listen. It is not a light read. Geoff goes deep on some very heavy subjects, but I highly encourage you to take notes and reflect upon what is said. When I read the book, it took me over a month to read the book because I had to keep stopping and taking notes and reflecting and sleeping on it and coming back to it and really kind of pulling out the truth of it for me, because there's so much in there that at first seemed like I couldn't wrap my head around it. But with time, I came to appreciate the truth and the profundity of what Geoff was sharing. Geoff is a treasure of a human being, and he's someone who has lived the very best and the very worst of humanity. This is not a man who has grown up wrapped in cotton wool, let me tell you that. If you woke up on January 1st saying that this is the year that you're going to change your life, new year, new me, this is a brilliant place to start. They say that he who conquers himself conquers the world. Well, if that's true, then I would also say that he who makes peace with himself makes peace with the world. And if that sounds appealing to you, then you'll enjoy this interview with the one and only Geoff Thompson. Geoff Thompson, thank you very much for joining us here on the first ever episode of The War on Mediocrity. Thank you, my friend, for making yourself available. It is a tremendous honor to kick the show off with someone who's had such a profound influence on my life. So thank you, Geoff, and welcome.
Thank you. It's a real pleasure. I really enjoyed our last interview, so it's good to be back.
Yeah, well, for those that may not be aware, I interviewed Geoff on the Managing Violence podcast, my other podcast, which is as you'd imagine, centered around managing violence. But this interview is going to go a little bit deeper. Geoff was kind enough to gift me a copy of The Divine CEO, which is his second most recent book. Geoff is nothing if not prolific when it comes to releasing books. And The Divine CEO was released, was it early 2020 or 2019, Geoff?
2020, yeah.
2020.
Late 2020, actually. It was, I think it was August 2020.
Okay, right.
Just a couple of months out.
Sure. So 2 books in a year, not bad for a pandemic.
Yeah, 2 different publishers. They were supposed to be 3 months apart, but it kind of, because of COVID, everything got a little bit mixed up, and they were almost concurrent, you know.
Yeah, look, and it's a completely different conversation from what we had last time, and a completely different book, and it's something that I will highly encourage everyone to pick up if you're interested in what we talk about. Now, The Divine CEO. It's not a book that screams martial arts. It's not a book that screams bouncer from Coventry. It is something that is completely different and more attuned, I guess, to the work that those of us that have followed you over your journey would relate to. I was talking to you offline before we started recording that it's not a light read. It's not something you pick up and can read in the ad breaks in between your TV shows or when you or plonk down on the coffee table. It's something you really need to digest. Can you tell us a little bit about the origin story of the book, like how the ideas sort of came to you and how that process began?
Yeah, I mean, it's an investment book, isn't it? It's just something you need to invest yourself in. And it's probably more martial arts than my other martial arts books because it's Budo. And Budo, obviously, the translation is without arms, without weapons. So it's for people that are ready to go beyond the level of the physical response, physical violence. None of the physical stuff at all. This is about letting go of the physical tools and going inwards. So what they would call it in Islam, the greater jihad, the greater war. So the lesser war is when we roll our sleeves up and we're physical and we're very capable in the animal realm of the physical world. When it becomes Budo, it becomes an internal battle. So all the same strategies work, really, all the same concepts and precepts work, but you are no longer grabbing somebody, you're no longer punching somebody, You no longer have those kind of submission holds. But this, and also the door, you know, people talk about me working as a bouncer. Everything that's in the Divine CEO was informed, I didn't realize, but was informed by working as a bouncer. Because as a bouncer, I had to guard the doorway of a nightclub. But now with the Buddha, I'm guarding the doorway of my heart. Or if you want it to be less esoteric, I'm guarding the doorway to my autonomy. Because the heart, allegorically in the biblical text, is in esoteric text, is always about the will. So when they talk about enter the land, enter the kingdom, the land of milk and honey, find the kingdom, then all good things will come to you. Cross the land. Land, the root word of land means will. So it's saying find the will, master your own autonomy. Once you've got your own will and you've got your own autonomy, then all the other things will come to you. So of course, when I was a bouncer, I was guarding the nightclub, and we were a strong team. So we kept the violence at the door. We didn't let people in to favor them. We didn't let people in because we were afraid of them, or because we were trying to curry favor with them. We stopped them if they weren't right to come in. And that meant we were able to contain it at the door. If it gets inside, as you know, it's a virus, it's an infection. So we had a very powerful door, and we stopped it at the door. And esoterically, it's exactly the same. There are things every single day trying to commandeer our will, take over our will, take over our autonomy. Even if we just watch a bit of propaganda TV, you call it the news, the daily news, with 20 murder stories before breakfast. You know, even if we engage those and become enraged at the world and angry at the world, even if we become dissonant at the world, our will, our autonomy has been taken off us for that moment. The only time it's not taken off us is if we're able to watch that and observe it without identification, observe it without engagement. So the most vital thing we have is our will, our own autonomy. And I'm talking about the will beyond conditioning. I'm not talking about, you know, a will that's based on, you know, the conditioning of society, our education, you know, our super ego, our internal parents. I'm talking about locating the self, the authentic self, beyond all of that conditioning, and working the will from there. When we are able to captain the will and we have our own autonomy, and a big part of that, as we spoke about last time, Joe, was managing our own endocrine system, not enabling someone to run away with us because of a negative post, or because of a negative email, or a negative phone call, or even a positive one where somebody masturbates us over the phone and tells us we're amazing, and suddenly, you know, they've taken over our autonomy. Our endocrine system has been commandeered. And the compliment, nothing too bad about that. But the moment we accept too many compliments, of course, the doors are open. You know, we're ready to accept the negatives as well. And we accept one, we accept the other. The door is open. We open the door to one, we open the door to all. So the idea is that we recognize, first of all, that we need to captain our own will. Once we've captained our own will, which means we have control of our endocrine system, we have control of our palate. I would say we have control of our thinking, but I'm not looking at thinking as something we do. I'm looking at thinking as something we engage. So if you imagine that thinking is a separate realm, if you're like gravity is a separate realm, isn't it? Gravity is its own realm. Thinking is its own realm. This is, I'm paraphrasing Aurobindo, where he talks about thinking as a separate realm. And it's something that we observe from the authentic self, from the witness. And we say, do I want to engage that? Or don't I want to engage it? These things are always looking to engage us. If we engage them, then the thinking becomes us, it incarnates us, and we become the thinker. If that's a good thought or a positive thought, that's great. We create some good in the world. If it's a negative thought, it might steal an hour, might steal a day, might steal a lifetime. People go through the whole lifetime with their thoughts commandeered, and they think they are their thoughts. They think that they're thinking. But actually, Once you recognize it, you start to see thought as a separate realm that you engage or don't engage. But you can only do that if you're able to identify the witness, or what Eckhart Tolle calls the observer self. So the divine CEO is all about saying, I'm Odysseus. I've come back from the Trojan Wars to Ithaca, my home, my kingdom, and I've realized that it's overrun with vagabonds. I'm so changed that people don't even recognize that I'm the king. They don't know, even my wife doesn't recognize me, and I have to win that kingdom back. That is an allegory for being woke, waking up. When people say he's awoke, or he's spiritually awake, they say it like it's socks and sandals, like it's dream catchers and angel cards under your pillow. Being awake is painful. Waking up is painful, mostly because you wake up and go, flipping out. I'm awake and I'm the king, but I have no control of this kingdom. I am overrun by habits, by addictions, by perceptions, by cognitions, by beliefs, by precepts. I'm overrun by so many things that are so used to engaging me without any opposition. In other words, I'm a nightclub where anybody can get in and it's a shitstorm. Anybody can get in, and I've got to win that kingdom back. So waking up, people generally, I've had a lot of this in the martial arts where people go, well, Geoff's gone spiritual. Like it's like socks and sandals, like always took the easy route. It's the most difficult route, because I can't roll my sleeves up anymore, Joe. I can't grab someone and do a tai toshi. I can't spin them round and do a choke. I can't hit them with my infamous right hand. I can't do that because I'm going to a place of no arms, of non-violence, and I've got to start working with other tools. So the idea of the divine CEO is that we wake up, normally through crisis, some kind of crisis, or an epiphany, same thing. They come into our life and it shakes us up, and we think, I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to be this factory guy, this office guy. I don't want to be in this marriage. I don't want to be in this relationship. I don't want to be in this house, this car, this street. I don't really want to be in this kind of realm of the world. There's something out there. That's waking up. So this is saying, this book is a guide for somebody that is awake, but in pain, who wants to awake. Someone that's gone through the they've gone through the physical stuff, or they've gone through the material stuff, what they call in Judaism the animal realm, where we're out there, we're making things happen, we're entrepreneurs, or we're money makers, or we're physical. And it's saying, I want something more, because this isn't sating me. So this is an invitation to what they would call the human realm, where we're able to go above the material world and gain our own autonomy. And when we gain our own will, we connect to the divine will, or to the source will. So the higher soul and the animal soul connect, and then we are a vessel for instruction, for action. So that's what it's really about. It's about you. If you were talking spiritually, you would say it's about connecting the lower soul to the higher soul, connecting the lower soul to God. Or it could just be about, if you're looking at it mechanically, you could just say, this is just about putting my plug into the mains electric. So I'm no longer running off my little battery for my radio. I'm going into the mains electric, so I have an infinite supply. I can access, or I can plug my television into the sky socket and suddenly get 200 channels or 400 channels. I can connect to the World Wide Web. So this is kind of saying, spiritually, we're connecting to our source, and our source will go, this is Geoff Thompson. He's just woke. He's captained his will. This is where he is. This is where he wants to be. This is what he's able to understand at the moment. So it's like a divine sat nav that starts to direct you towards your dharma, whatever it is that you're here to do. We're all part of a divine plan, and we all have an individual part to play in that divine plan. So once we connect to the mains electric, to our source, it recognizes it recognizes our signature, and it starts to flow towards us, and it starts to put us in the direction of perfection. This is a guide to managing that.
Hey guys, did you know that you can get Geoff Thompson's book, The Divine CEO, at the link in the description below? Click on that link, go straight through. You'll get it. You'll go straight to the book, and Amazon will chip in a couple of cents to keep this show running. Back to Geoff. Geoff, there's a couple of things I wrote down, even just in the very first chapter when I first sat down and started reading this book. I didn't even have a notepad beside me when I started reading it, and within about 2 pages, I ran off to get a notepad because I knew there was going to be a lot I wanted to remember. And I'm just reviewing some of the early notes I took, and there's a couple of phrases that really resonated with me, and I guess with the spirit of this podcast being for those that are seeking something more, and for those that are seeking to improve their lives or to change their lives, change their focus. And the 2 lines that resonate with me I've got written here is to make room for the new, the old must die. And the ghost of the old self haunts the optimistic newborn. And I'm sure I paraphrased, but the concept of you mentioned that being woke is painful, waking up is painful. And a large part of that, I think, is saying goodbye to the old self that's comfortable. That we know, and even though it's got flaws, we at least know it. We're comfortable with its flaws, and there's no surprises in the old flaws. Whereas a new reality, not only do you need to find something new, but you almost have to kill the old to be able to really embrace the new. You want to talk through that process a little bit?
Yeah, well, you wake up. It's like I said, talking back to Odysseus. Odysseus has left the kingdom and it's overrun in his absence. He has to go and win it back. The people there don't want to give him it back. So our beliefs, our precepts, our concepts, our conditioning, they are semi-autonomous thought forms that are squatting within the body. They don't want to go. We say that it's death of the old, but it's actually a conversion of the old. But that's still a death of that old identity. So the old will rise up for its normal feed of gluttony, of gossip, of anger, of envy, of greed, of judgment. And then we say, I'm woke. And that doesn't serve me anymore. So I'm not going to engage that. It rises up. It tries to, if you can see here, this is what they call the Plender gap. It rises up to engage you. That's the engagement point. If you was in a nightclub, that would be the nightclub door. So there is a geography to the doorway to the will. If you watch any strong emotions when they come, they may alight all over the body, but eventually they will congregate at the doorway of the heart, which is here. It took me 60 years to figure this out, and it's only through copious amounts of study and self-examination that I've realized that it's here, the Plender gap. So we guard the door here. If I'm in a nightclub, Joe, I don't have 5 doors open because it'd be impossible to man it. I have 1 door open, and that 1 door has 4 bouncers on it so that we can filter who comes in and stop who we don't want. So the doorway to the heart is exactly the same, or the doorway to autonomy. So we place our attention here on the doorway so that we monitor what comes in and what doesn't come in. So when the old stuff rises up and says, I want to watch sexual pornography, I want to watch violence on TV, or I want to gossip, or I want to be angry, or I want to be judgmental, or I want to overeat or overdrink, whatever the feed is, we observe it and we go, no, we're not engaging that. We're just going to observe that. We're going to watch it until it breaks down into its component parts. So all the concepts, well, if you have a concept, the concept creates a form, and the form has an aspect. So if my concept is that Joe's violent, then I will have Joe in the form of a violent person. And then obviously the aspect of that would be that Joe is threatening because he's violent and he might be threatening to me. If I'm able to look at you as a neutral energy and break the concept down, there's no concept, there's no form, there's no aspect, there's just energy. So I can meet you as neutral energy. So if it rises up in me as anger or rage, that's an energy with a concept, a form, and an aspect. If I'm able to observe that, eventually it will break down into its component parts, and all I'm left with is raw energy, neat energy. And then I can filter that through whatever I want. At the moment, you could say that I'm filtering that energy that rises up in me, because it still rises. So I'm filtering it in and I'm converting it from material to spiritual in this talk with you now. So that energy is being used in a positive way, because when it comes out of me, energy, all that breath, all that spirit that's contained in me is semi-autonomous. It's real. It's spirit. It is not just spiritual, it's spirit, as in spirito, as in psyche. So as it has its own autonomy. If I'm able to convert that negative energy and bring it through a positive filter and give it to you, and you put that podcast out and people watch it, they will feel that spirit through you, through me. So we will be talking soul to soul, spirit to spirit, and they will feel inspired by what we say. So that spirit has come through me and lifted me, and I've given it to other people, and it will lift them. So it's very real. It isn't just about breath. The center of breath is spirit or ki or chi. We talk about it a lot in the martial arts, the chi, the ki, the pneuma, all of these different names for it. So I'm actually learning the Budo is to bring that up, dispose of the negative concepts and bring it through pure, and just let it go out into the world on a book, on a podcast, on an interview, on a film, on a stage play, on a poem. Doesn't make no difference. You read a 4,000-year-old poem by Rumi, and the spirit that he has channeled into the poem actually comes alive and goes into us and acts as a healer. It's like when I was going through a very difficult cleansing, a very difficult regeneration, Rumi got me through. And it's because Rumi has been a vessel for spirit, where he's put that spirit into ink, into words. And 2,000 years later, I open it, I make the effort, I use my will to read it, and the spirit comes off, it enters me, and it's an attribute, it's a remedy. In Islam, they would call it a remedy, an attribute of God. So that poem goes into me, and I suddenly feel that I'm starting to heal. So it's very real. If I allow myself, if I'm ignorant to this, if I don't understand it, if I'm still at the physical level and I allow it to come through as rhetoric or bile or aggression, then I'm still putting spirit out into the world, but I'm putting negative spirit out into the world. And that negative spirit will fire people up, and they'll want to kick off, and they'll want to have a fight, and all sorts of negativity is developed through that. So the idea with this is that when these old things rise up, we go, yeah, but there's a new boss in town, so we're not engaging that anymore. It takes a tremendous struggle, because if you like, with me for instance, I've got like a 40-year sexual pornography habit. It wasn't like I was on it every single day, but it was absolutely embedded to the point where I have no control of it. It let me think I had control of it, Joe. I have no control of it. So when that rose up and said, yeah, let's go and have a look a bit of porn, I go, so we're not doing that anymore, because that is not a creative way for me to use my energy. And it's causing all sorts of problems in the world, because I am taking in the images of abused people, damaged souls, and I'm using it for masturbation, for gratification, for pleasure. And I'm aiding that by watching it. I'm actually aiding it, but I'm also poisoning my body, because I'm feeling, in allegorical terms, I'm letting the vampire across the threshold. I'm allowing something to enter into my will, take over my will for a little bit of 5 seconds of creamy liquid, for a little bit of pleasure. But so these things, when they rise up, they are situated within you. They are there. They claim parts of you. They claim territories. We have to win those territories back. The way we win them back is by starving them, by saying that stuff isn't happening anymore. We don't do that anymore. And when you get to a certain level, you can't do it anyway. Because if you go towards that thing, if the soul is situated in you, so if you've made a connection, a join with the higher soul and the lower soul, and that spirit is in you, and you access any kind of pornography, sexual or violent or otherwise, it's actually an assault on the soul. It's very painful. So you start to get divine shocks. It's like you've touched an electric cable. You get disproportionate amounts of anxiety, and you can literally feel the invader in your body trying to take over. You can hear the voice of it. So you start to recognize all this, and you go, okay, I am the king of this body and this mind, but I've lost my autonomy. So I'm going to win my autonomy back. So then we start to gradually work on winning back parts of ourselves that have been taken over. So for me, it was a proclivity towards excess, violence and sexual pornography, particularly because they're so closely limited, so closely linked. You know, the arousal for fight or flight and the sexual arousal are almost identical chemicals. So they were the two areas where I was most vulnerable, where I needed to reclaim myself. So through a period of massive input of new energy, new information, you know, reading the spiritual texts, reading the philosophers, going into the exegesis and the commentary on the spiritual texts, living a good life, not being violent. Obviously, the first thing you do when you repent is you stop doing the old stuff and you start doing new stuff. In Buddhism, they call repentance return. So we're returning to homeostasis, or we return into the still center, or we return into our source. So the battle is that the old self is going, we still want the shit, and the new self saying, well, that isn't happening anymore. Imagine if you took over a nightclub, Joe. Took over, like it happened to me 2 or 3 times. I've got a reputation in Coventry, and they put me into shitholes. They put me into places that needed to be cleaned up. So I would go in and I'd have to clean it up. So I'd have to kick out the people, staff as well, if they were corrupt. The staff and the customers that were there, the moment they kicked off, I threw them out and barred them. And the people coming in, anybody coming in who had been banned or barred, or anybody that was coming in who I knew was trouble, we didn't let them in. So cleaning up the body and taking over autonomy of the body allegorically is exactly the same as going into a nightclub with a fresh broom and saying there's a new boss in town and we're going to clean it up. We did it with a place called the Navigation, and it was full of gangsters, and it was a real dark place. We went in there, and over the period of 3 months, we had some battles, but we cleaned it out. And the moment we cleaned it out, Joe, we started to attract very powerful, very positive clientele, and it became a place that people wanted to come and drink, come and eat. And then right at the very end, the management said, yeah, we brought you in, you know, the Pied Piper, to clear the city of rats. But now we can't pay you, we can't afford to keep you, all the normal stuff. So we went away and it just got filled with rats again. And now it's a block of flats, Joe.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you. What did you say?
No, I was just going to say it's that you solve the problem and then there's not a problem that's worth paying that much money for anymore. So
absolutely, yeah.
The cycle repeats.
What did Sun Tzu say? You keep an army for 100 years, even if you only use it for a day.
Yeah, exactly. It's a strange industry, isn't it? Where being sent into the worst possible places is actually a compliment.
Yeah, it's so true. And they paid good money for it as well. They paid 4 times. They've paid 4 times the average wage of a factory worker, and the factory workers were being paid good money at the time. So you got paid a lot of money, but obviously it was dangerous. So I remember writing "Watch My Back," which was my first book about working the doors, and somebody said to me, "Yeah, it's not a deep book. It has no subtext." And I said, "Listen, this book is full of subtext." But I said, I can't articulate it to you at the moment because I'm still understanding it. 30 years on after writing that book, I realized that the whole experience of working as a bouncer was metaphysical. Everything there was an exaggerated version, like a manifest version of how we protect our own autonomy, how we protect our own will. I had to be the king in that nightclub in order to keep it clean. And that's just a shitty nightclub. You imagine what it's like if you are guarding the door to the treasure of the soul. And the treasure of the soul is a treasure because we can create incredible things. If we just get a in Judaism they will call it chokmah, which is a spark of wisdom. If we just get a spark of wisdom the size of an acorn, or the size of a seed inside an acorn, that much, just a spark, and we unfold it and we unpack it, it's like the seed of an acorn. It has the potential to become a 500-year-old, 200-foot tree that has the potential within its lifetime to create another million seeds of the same ilk. And each of those seeds has the potential to develop another million ad infinitum. So this body our soul, once we're aligned and we've broken our condition and we've won our kingdom back, has infinite potential to unpack infinite amounts of possibility. So you imagine that. You imagine I had an idea when I was very depressed to write a fear pyramid and confront all my fears. That was just a spark of an idea. 30 years on, that is 50 books. It's 15 multi-award winning films, stage plays, hundreds of articles, thousands of talks, all from one tiny little infinite seed that was given to me as a gift. I unpacked it and I processed it, and I'm still processing it now. I remember my wife saying to me, I said to my wife, I need to do more with Watch My Back. I feel as though it's not doing enough. And she said, Geoff, you're not looking at it properly. That book is a Pandora's box. Everything you've done, everything you continue to do has come from that one book. And that one book came from one idea, which was, I'm depressed. I don't think I can last another day. I'm waking up in the morning at 4 with a cold sweat, and I am so suffering. I am so sad and so afraid. And I remember thinking, when I find the truth, when I understand this, I'm going to tell everybody. At that point, I triggered on the secret to the perpetual universe. If we receive in order to serve others, we will be given infinite amounts of knowledge, infinite amounts. We'll be given access to infinite amounts of arcana, but we still have to unpack them. So in Judaism, in Kabbalah, they call it Habad, and it's an acronym for Hokmah, Bina, and Dart. It basically just means we receive wisdom through Hokmah, which is the gift, and then in Bina, we unpack it, we literally do the work, and then Dart or Dart is the completion of it. So if I have a spark of an idea and it becomes a book, that is the process of receiving it, sitting down and doing the work until it's a manifest thing, and then the manifest thing goes out into the world and works, and that is the completion, that's the conclusion. And of course, that seed, as we said with the oak tree, that becomes a seed for something else. Watch My Back was like, oh, I've done a book, I think I can do a play. I've done a play, why don't I do a film? I've done a film, why don't I write a musical? I've done a musical, I've done a film, why don't I go and do a TED talk? You know, why don't I just set up a book tour and go around Britain and do a 32 city tour and talk to people and tell them what I've learned? And of course, when you're giving them this stuff that you've learned, you unpack more and you get more little seeds. So suddenly you've got like a barn full of seeds, and each of those seeds has the potential to create 1 million seeds within its own lifetime, each seed. So it's only that much, but it's, as we know, it takes the work. It takes the work to be able to unpack that. You know, for me to unpack my latest revelation, and the unpacking of it has given me a new seed. But it was like full-time study for the last year on a particular subject, on a particular topic, and every single day, when I sat down to read full-time, this was the Zohar that I was reading, which is a commentary on Kabbalah, and Kabbalah is the esoteric side of the Old Testament, the Torah. So when I was reading that, it took every part of my will to make myself sit down every day, and every single day I had torment rising in my body to say, don't read this. You don't understand this. This makes no sense. This is insulting. You know, you're wasting your time. You could be doing something. And all of that opposition, of course, was the old parts going, we don't like this. We don't like this remedy. This is an antivirus you're putting into our body. And of course, all of that resistance, Joe, as it rose up, was consumed in the volition of the study, the writing, and the making the notes, and then making notes on the notes, and then notes on the notes on the notes. So I ended up with 70 pages of notes, which I reduced to 40. Then I reduced to 20. Then I reduced to 10. I eventually reduced possibly a year's full-time study into one word, which was breath. Breath is the key to all of it, because we bring it in and we push it back out again. But how are we bringing it in? How are we bringing it in? Through positive filters, And are we giving it out through positive filters? Excuse me, or are we bringing it in through negative and putting it out as positive? What we contribute to the world is wholly determined by breath. So that takes you on the path of starting to look at things like Qigong, Tai Chi, yoga, which is all about breath work, you know. So what I'm saying is the potential to expand, the potential to understand, or even more importantly, the potential to know. It's less about understanding. Understanding is part of the process, but to know, what they call in Islam, they call it yaqeen, certainty. Certainty is something you can experience, but you can't articulate. I can give you a hint and a flavor of my certainty, and you'll feel it through me. You'll feel my certainty now, but I couldn't tell you exactly what it is, only that I've experienced it through this process of habad, of receiving wisdom, unpacking wisdom, until wisdom becomes a seed of conclusion. So that certainty is so powerful, and that's why it travels across the world. The reason Chuck Norris got me to come and teach in Las Vegas was not because I'm a great bloke or because I'm the best martial artist in the world. I'm not. He brought me to Las Vegas to teach. He invited me 3 times because I'd found certainty. I stood at a nightclub door, and the nightclub and the environment of the nightclub said, "Oh, you want certainty? You've got martial arts and you want certainty. Oh, that's great. We can show you certainty, because anything that's not certainty is going to be trampled underfoot. It will be trashed the moment you bring it out. You won't even bring it out because it won't breathe in this this very fine air." So Chuck Norris was actually John Will who picked up on it, who's one of my good friends in Australia. He gave it to Richard Norton. And he passed it on to Chuck Norris, and then Chuck Norris invited me over to America. But what they felt was certainty. Certainty. There's no agenda, there's no ostentation, there's no opinion, there's just certainty. And they want you to come over and let other people feel that certainty. So that's available. This truth is equitably available to anybody. Equitably available to anybody. Irrespective of your position, irrespective of your education, irrespective of your color or your caste or your creed, makes no difference. Whether you're in a restricted position or whether you're in a elevated position, it makes no difference. The truth is equitably available to everybody. And I would say that the people out there now watching this, who are in a place of restriction, have quicker access to this than people that are in a position of luxury, because luxury is a seductee. Luxury softens people. Luxury is something I avoid like the plague. So the people who are restricted now, those kids who are watching this, if you're depressed, if you're struggling with money, if you're struggling in relationships, if you're feeling suicidal, you are closer to the truth than a guy that lives in America or lives in Australia or lives in England who's a billionaire. You are closer to the truth because you're actually on the coalface.
Geoff, I think it's a great segue to something that I mean, there's so much in the book we could unpack, but given that I can't keep you for the entire day. One of the chapters I found really interesting was the divine fall, and the idea that the truth is really found on the way down, or it's the idea that it's the fall, it's the pain, it's the suffering, it's the thing that doesn't work out that often gives us that real glimpse of truth. And I think that what you just said is a powerful segue to that. Before I get you to unpack that, the other line, I think it might have been in Divine Economy, was that blame is lazy and unintelligent. Blame is the narcotic of modern society. And it's something that really struck home with me, because I've had a lot of conversations with people this year, 2020. It's obviously been an incredibly stressful year for so many people all over the world. And people have lost businesses, they've lost livelihoods, they've lost relatives, they've lost loved ones, they've lost freedoms. We've lost a lot of things that we've taken for granted. And it's very easy to blame people. It's very easy to blame politicians for not doing the right thing, for blame other people on the street for not doing the right thing and creating this, or blame people from other countries for causing these issues. And that blame is such a lazy way of addressing the problem. And it also robs us, I think, of the chance to grow, because while you're giving agency to someone else, you're actually stripping yourself of that agency to do anything with it.
Yeah, while you're blaming them, you're waiting for them.
Yeah.
It's their fault. It can't change until they change, which means I'm their servant. They're my master. And it's just the first house ghost. I mean, blame is lazy because it's the first house ghost. It's the first thing that stops in your way and says, don't investigate this. It's his fault. Actually, we're all to blame. We're all guilty. Everybody is guilty of everything. If we're part of the problem, then we're the whole problem. You know, everything that goes on in the world is a fatberg, and it contains my used condom. It contains, you know, your toilet paper. It contains her nappy. You know, this fatberg of karma, this fatberg of what's going on in the world is contributed to by everybody. Everybody's a part of it. So if we're still engaging in gossip, if we're still engaging, you know, character assassination, if we're still unkind, if we're still judgmental, if we still have these, you know, angry opinions, and if we still feel the need to be violent, if we're still dabbling in the vices, even in the smallest way, we're disconnected from kindness. So whether I'm disconnected from kindness by you know, gossiping over a coffee at Costa, or whether I'm disconnected because I've murdered somebody, it doesn't really make much difference. I know the consequence will be different, but if I'm disconnected, Joe, I'm disconnected. If I pull the plug out of my heater over there, it doesn't matter if I pull it out by a millimeter or if I pull it out by a mile. What's the difference? It's out. I'm not connected anymore. So if we fall into unkindness, we disconnect from grace. We disconnect from our mains electric. So there's a lovely saying in the Old Testament, all are guilty. We're all guilty. We think that because we're destroying somebody over a coffee outside Costa, that we're not massively doing any harm to the world because we're not murdering anybody. But we are actually drawing blood. This is one of the things it talks about in the Kabbalah, which I love. It said, if you shame somebody and it brings blood to their head, you are drawing blood. It's a great unkindness, but it's so subtle that people are not aware they're doing it. But it shows you how little control people have of themselves. If we can't stop ourselves from gossiping about somebody, if we can't stop ourselves from having an unkind opinion, then we don't have autonomy. We don't have agency at all. We can pretend that we have it, and we can do our judo or our martial arts and feel as though we've got power. But if we're still sleeping with our students, if we're still fiddling our tax, if we're still unkind, even just in our thoughts, which is worse because the thought is very, very close to the source, then we're not part of the problem. We are the problem. So the moment we blame other people, we automatically, exactly like you said, we automatically strip ourselves of agency. We strip ourselves of sovereignty. We no longer have autonomy. Geoff Thompson is no longer in the room. I am somebody else's opinion. I am somebody else's lackey. So the moment I do that, the moment I engage that or identify with it, I take the thought in, it engages me, it incarnates me, and for that time, I am that thought. So how can I have any agency at all while I have his thought or her thought? So this is about looking at it and going, yeah, if I want things to change, you know, it's no good me shaking my fist at Donald Trump if I can't even change my own waist size. You know, I'm asking people to change the world, but I can't even change my eating habits. I can't even change my talking habits. I can't even stop myself from thinking about things over and over again. I don't even realize what the Dharma is. I don't realize that thought isn't mine. There's so much I don't know. And because we don't know, it's very easy for anybody who knows a tiny little bit, you know, that lovely thing in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. If somebody knows a tiny little bit, they have agency over us because we don't know anything. So as a bouncer, Joe, we were able to control people en masse, very violent people. We were able to control them because we had knowledge, we had knowing. And we had knowing that was so dangerous because these people didn't have any knowing at all. No, so we were able to control them. We were able to climb inside them, control their endocrine system. We were able to control their thinking. We were able to control their actions. We were able to disengage them. We were able to knock them unconscious. We were able to do lots of things because they didn't know anything. So if we don't know much stuff, we're going to be continually controlled by people who know just a little bit more. So the exciting thing about that is, I want to understand more. So first of all, if we want to understand more, we need to understand Dharma. What is the nature of this world? What is it? Obviously, basically, it's a world of causation. Everything affects everything. You know, the law of compensation. That's scientific. So if everything affects everything, that means what I think, what I say, and what I do have an effect. They go out into the world, and they always return to sender. They always return, and they never return on their own, do they? They always bring something back with them. So that's the Dharma. The law is the Dharma. And what is my personal part in that Dharma? What am I here to do? Am I here to sweep a floor, or am I here to do something? You know, am I here to do a talk with Joe Saunders, or am I here to write a book, or am I here to, you know, what is it I'm here to do? What is the specific thing? What is my specific signature? What am I meant to do within that rule, within that law? I know what I need to do because I'm doing it now. And my job is to say to people, you want answers. I'm not your guru. Joe's not your guru, but we know where your guru is. He's in you. He's situated in you. So we're encouraging people, and the Divine CEO is encouraging people to stop looking outside, because a guru is just going to be somebody else that has sovereignty over you. So you're looking for the inner guru, or the inner tutor, the inner tuition. So the idea is that the moment we blame people, we immediately disengage from personal autonomy, and we put the blame out there. I would say to people, when you get yourself aligned, when you're congruent, when your thoughts and your words and your deeds are aligned to kindness, and you have control of your endocrine system, and you have control of yourself, that's the time to go out and start complaining to other people. And I would suggest there isn't going to be a time like that, because once you get that alignment, you'll look at it and you'll go, I don't need to worry too much about that. I just need to concentrate on, you know, I don't need to look over there and go, as an allegory, I don't need to look over there and go, the piston's not doing his job. I'm a manifold. I've got to make sure that I do everything I can do as a manifold. If I'm a wheel arch, I don't need to look at the steering wheel and go, you're not pulling your weight. I'm a wheel arch. I need to do my job. I need to recognize that there is a mechanic and a driver above that who will look after the overall structure of the car. I need to make sure that if I'm here to be a manifold, I am a perfect manifold. I'm the best manifold I can be. The moment we blame, the moment we project, we've come out of our place of being a manifold to try and tell other people how to do it, when we're not really doing our own job ourselves. Because if we're falling out of alignment to blame other people, then we automatically know we're out of alignment. So it's that thing, blame disempowers, absolutely.
I absolutely could not have asked for a better answer to that question. I don't even remember if I asked a question, but I loved everything you just said.
That was about 5 hours ago, Joe.
Wow, I could listen to you talk all day, so please never shut up on my accord. Geoff, look, we're coming up on time. I thoroughly enjoyed the book. It's not something that I don't read a lot of esoteric material, but it really resonated with me. It was something that I know I'm going to read again, and it's one of those books that I feel like when I read it again, I'll get something more out of it. And I feel like the longer I leave it between reads, there'll probably be more profound changes. And it's amazing. I was just having a conversation on my other podcast with Richard Dimitri, and we were talking about Bruce Lee, and it was for the 80th, what would have been Bruce Lee's 80th birthday. And we were rereading his classical article, Liberate Yourself from Classical Karate, which he wrote at 31 years of age in 1971. And it's amazing. I hadn't read that article since I was 17 years old. And I read that article again, and there was so much more in it than I ever remembered. And I think the true works of great literature, and I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever lumped Bruce Lee's books into great literature before, but I think that true work that has so many layers, like you've gifted us with, has that resounding value that will continue to give back, not just to this generation, and not even just to me at this point, but I think for future generations, they'll see truth in what you're saying. And I highly encourage everyone who's watching or listening to go and purchase a copy, because it's it's a game changer. If you approach it with an open mind and you have ears to listen, then it will change the way you look at things. Geoff, there was one thought that I had when I was reading it, when I was just listening to you, that resonated with me. And you were talking about, I think in the book you might reference something like, I can't give you certainty. I can spark certainty, but you have to know it yourself and you have to feel it yourself. And one quote I don't even remember where I stole it from, but I wish, if anyone's listening to this and you know where I got this idea from, please tell me. I'd love to give credit. It's been sort of rattling around in my brain so long, I have no idea where it came from. And that is that knowledge is the overlap between belief and truth. And until those two things overlap, you don't really have knowledge. Something can be true, but if you don't believe it, it's not knowledge. And you might believe something, but if it's not true, it's not knowledge. And I think this is a guidepost that you can use to develop that knowledge between belief and truth. So, Geoff, I just want to thank you very much for writing the book, for gifting the book to me, and also for being on the show to talk about it. I think it's hugely influential and a great gift to humanity.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, Geoff, I'd love it if you'd stick around for 5 or 10 more minutes just to go through a couple of bonus questions. But for those that will leave you here, thank you very much, Geoff Thompson.
Thank you, Joe.
Wow, man! Just watching that back as I do this post-record and doing the editing, putting this back together, man. What an incredible human being Geoff Thompson is. I'm so pleased and honored to call him my friend. We did record some bonus content with Geoff. This would normally be locked behind a paywall with our Patreon for our Patreon-only subscribers. However, because this is the first episode of the podcast, what I'd like to do is make that freely available to anyone who wants to listen to the bonus content, get a sample of the kind of material you would get if you sign up as a contributor at our Patreon. Then I will make that freely available. It'll be on YouTube. I'll put the link in the description below if you would like to find out what that bonus content sounds like. If you like it and you want to hear more, head on over to www.patreon.com/War on Mediocrity. Sign up over there for as little as $5 a month, and you get all the bonus content from Geoff and every guest that we have moving forward. Thank you so much for listening. If you're interested in more, we're on all the social media as War on Mediocrity, and also please follow our website, www.waronmediocrity.com. Join the mailing list so you never miss out on another show. And I look forward to bringing you more in 2021.